It's time for the Democratic Party to move forward. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's briefly talk about all of the commotion that happened after President Biden's poor debate performance. I've talked about it more than once, but now the difference is that major party leaders, including Bernie Sanders, who I listen to wholeheartedly, everything he says, I believe in his vision of the country, and he has come out in support of President Biden. Other party leaders have also come out in support of President Biden. Many governors, 24 governors of the country, all Democratic governors, went and talked with President Biden, and they have all stood behind the president. President Biden also put out a letter that said that the president has proven his promises and proven his record, and also that the primary process showed that a vast majority of Americans want President Biden to be their nominee, vast of Democrats, that is, because it was a Democratic primary. So if President Biden has 90 odd percent of the vote in Democratic primary, President Biden challenged anybody who wanted to come up against him in the convention to do so. President Biden had an interview with ABC. President Biden then sent out a letter. President Biden then had a phone call interview with Morning Joe, with Joe Scarborough and Mika, and nothing during these. And mind you, the president is going around with his election campaign and going across the country, as well as working on his job as a president, which is executing the laws of the United States, both in foreign policy and domestic policy. So the president has come out and written that letter, and then after the press secretary was essentially hounded by the White House press corps, many in the White House press corps, the president's neurologist, who is the neurologist for the entire White House team that oversees the medical health of over 1,000 people who work at the White House and military personnel, including the president, put out a letter saying that the president had neurological tests done. He has it done once a year. His the neurologist himself was at the White House because of other people who needed neurological help, because there are over 1,000 people who rely upon the White House medical team, and essentially dispelling the notion that there is any disunity or there's in the party. Now, that is not to say that some people are disappointed or some people still have qualms because they see President Biden getting older. Age is not an issue. Competence is the issue. This is not a popularity contest of how young and robust somebody can be, but rather how measured and how restrained and how uh, steadfast somebody is in faithfully executing the laws under which is their mandate under the Constitution. And President Biden and his team have accomplished a whole lot and continue to defend our republic. So, will this quell the punditry that is coming out and continuing to talk about President Biden's age while they completely ignore Donald Trump's constant lying about everything? That there will be pundits who do that. There will be Democratic people, Democratic members of Congress, and some Democratic leaders here and there who will come out and keep talking about how President Biden should step down. But the problem, and I've said this before, with a president stepping down when they have the chance of reelection is giving up that party's candidacy because and win because they're giving up the incumbency. Incumbency is a huge um, uh, weapon, you can say, politically in the arsenal of a candidate running for any office, and that is ever more true for the presidency. Also, the president continues to communicate with the American people as he has done throughout the time between the debate over 2 weeks ago and now, and has opened up his neurological team, his medical team, has written a letter, has done 2 TV interviews, one phone, one sit down, where he has explained what happened. And it is frustrating for him at this point because we are not talking about the issues. We are not talking about how the other side wants an abortion ban. We're not talking about how they want to restrict IVF access. We're not talking about how they want to do away with the Department of Education. We're not talking about how they're talking about militarizing the state in a way as to go after political enemies. Essentially, with the Supreme Court's ruling in Trump v. United States, if Donald Trump gets into the White House will become the center of the crime hub of the country. Corruption will take over the country, and we will lose our republic one step at a time. Donald Trump and Project 2025, they are not hiding what they want to do. They're doing it in plain view. But what they are doing is egging on and amplifying the discord that we ourselves have put in our party by disuniting over one debate performance. Think about how minuscule that is compared to how many gaffes and how many mistakes Donald Trump has made when he had teleprompters. Why didn't he lose in the debate then? If that is the question, the answer is on the issues Donald did lose because he lied through every question that was ever asked of him. He never specifically answered any of the questions, whereas President Biden answered the questions substantively. President Biden could not deal with the barrage coming out of Donald's mouth, who is a pathological liar. President Biden was overworked. And we have these explanations that tell us everything that the public needs to know. And also President Biden's decision that he's not going anywhere. So, what we need to do as a party, also as a pro democracy coalition against the fascist regime that Donald Trump promises with the help of Project 2025 and his loyalists, we need to focus on that. And we need to focus on what President Biden has promised to do to codify Roe, to keep working on the infrastructure projects, to grow the economy from the middle class, to include SCOTUS reform, to be able to sign in immunity reform that Senator Schumer has just started talking about, which would rein in the Supreme Court's overreaching opinion in Trump v. United States. That can only happen if there is a blue Congress and President Biden is reelected. We need to understand what's at stake. Our democracy is at stake. Our rights are at stake. And the choice we have now is a steadfast elderly president who has kept his promises and who keeps in touch with the American people and about what the American people want. And on the other side, we have a man who incited an insurrection against the United States, has been convicted of 34 state felony counts in New York, has 3 other outstanding criminal indictments against him, has lied over and over again about January 6th, continues to lie about it, continues to deny that he will accept the outcome of elections, despite the fact that there's no showing that there is any type of corruption in the election system. That's what our choice is. We have somebody who continues to divide and cast doubt on our country and make our country look bad all around the world, calling our country a third world country now. It's going down the tubes. Only I can save it. Donald Trump keeps saying that. But on the other side, President Biden talks about the issues and the jobs he has created and how that is helping the economy, how he has brought down gas and oil production and brought down the energy cost and therefore inflation. It is the administration working day in and day out from the day they got into office to manage the COVID crisis and the economic crisis that has hit the world after the pandemic. Few other advanced nations have been able to cope after the pandemic despite our losses as well as we have. And that is largely attributed to President Biden's administration. And what he inherited, it has taken our country 3.5 years to sort of recover. And 4 more years of President Biden will see us through that recovery, and we will step into a new age of American progress, of ingenuity, of leadership. And we as Americans need to be able to appreciate what the president has done for us and acknowledge that there's still a long way to go, and stick with the president who keeps his word and not the one who attacks our republic and openly says that they want to terminate parts of the Constitution. So, with that said, thank you so much. I hope that the punditry stops and focuses back on the issues. We will have another debate in September. And by the way, it's not going to be too late then, because the only viable option, should President Biden at some point decide he's not up to the job, is the constitutionally mandated vice president. And we know that Kamala Harris is one of the most consequential vice presidents in American history. She has a record both in state government and in federal government long before she became VP. And she is the successor. So there is no scenario where our country will not be in good hands, except for the scenario of Donald Trump coming back, because that will end our republic. That will make certain that 2024 becomes the last proper, free, and fair election in the United States. Because Donald Trump will exploit Trump v. United States. Donald Trump will further corrupt the Supreme Court by putting more MAGA justices into the court. And Donald Trump will undo the administrative state with the help of Loper Bright and with the help of Project 2025's clean sweep of the federal government. So the test of democracy rests on our shoulders. It is now, from now to November, tell everybody that it is our democracy that's at stake, and we need to defend it. And the only way to do it is to vote for President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.